I did what I did for the good of the realm.
The realm? Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
But what do we have left once we abandon the lie? Chaos. A gaping pit waiting to swallow us all.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder. Many who try to climb it fail, and never get to try again. The fall breaks them. And some are given a chance to climb, but they refuse. They cling to the realm, or the gods, or love. Illusions. Only the ladder is real. The climb is all there is.
Oh man, you Game of Thrones fans think you got it so bad. You have a writer who's taking forever to finish the books, two boys who seemingly keep on making the worst choices and adapting the material to the screen. There's simply no greater agony than being a longtime hardcore Game of Thrones fans, am I right? What if I told you there was another beloved dark fantasy series that started in 1989 and is still going on to this day, and nowhere near being finished? A hugely influential series that has an incredibly diehard fanbase that is constantly tortured by a never-ending series of hiatuses as its author takes long sabbaticals between chapters. A series that has been adapted multiple times but never had a truly great 100% faithful adaptation. Unlike the Game of Thrones series, which has mostly been pretty faithful to the books for at least the first 5 seasons until there were no more books to use, but still had every dime that HBO could scrounge up thrown at it. A series that has been running so long that we literally seen its main revenge-fueled protagonist go on a decades-long journey to heal the one he loved most, whose mind was completely broken by tragedy, only for her to finally be healed. Then, when we finally get the moment where they'll be together and reunite after literally waiting an entire lifetime for this moment, we cut off on a cliffhanger that still hasn't been resolved. I'm serious. There are like diehard OG Berserk fans, complete with body tattoos, who literally did not make it to the day when Casca was healed and was finally able to meet Guts again. That's how long this shit has been going on for. So if you think you're tortured as a Game of Thrones fan waiting for the 6th book and seeing the TV show take some interesting liberties with the source material,
What you need, the bad pussy.
A finger in the bum. Shh. Not now. We'll talk later.
while the greatest force ever assembled for TV production makes movie-quality television, well, you ain't got nothing on the Berserk fans, who, like the series protagonist Guts, have been constantly put through a never-ending endurance test of torment and misery as they struggle forward to enjoy a series with an end that may never come. There are 2 tiers of Game of Thrones fans. There's the true diehards who read it before it was cool, when it was primarily known as A Song of Ice and Fire, and of course the people who were brought in by the TV show. But the TV show made it cool. Original fans had to fight off the stigma of reading fantasy books, because for the longest of time, nothing had a greater stigma than fantasy literature. Not like reading manga or talking about anime in public is even more stigmatized, right? Fantasy is totally one of the most mocked and derided mediums in popular culture. Not like there was a huge trilogy of movies that made it more acceptable, You know, those little Academy Award-winning movies, including that one that won Best Picture. Not like fantasy has said anything like that. But even if we're slowly starting to see a shift where the genre stuff is becoming more mainstream in popular culture, where the most successful movie of all time is a guy's sci-fi smurf Rain Gully fanfic, and the new potential king is basically superhero cape porn, let me put it this way. There are far more people who are willing to read the volumes of Harry Potter or Game of Thrones in public than people willing to risk being seen reading something like One Piece or Naruto. The paradigm shift is coming slowly, and you can see it in instances where 10,000 people gather in South America to watch an illegal stream of the latest episode of Dragon Ball Super, but we still got a ways to go before the stigma goes away entirely. So the point is, as bad as you Game of Thrones people might think you have it, it's nothing compared to the secret cult of the Berserk fandom. All they got is a manga that will never be finished, a 1997 anime that barely counts as animation, especially given how it relies on panning still frames for action, a movie trilogy that's CG and cuts out a lot of material from the manga, and a god-awful 2016 anime that looks like a PS2 cutscene that true fans grit their teeth through and endured anyway, just because it was the only way they'd ever see any material outside of the Golden Age arc brought to life. If anything, the long-running Berserk fandom is a hardened cabal ready to weather any storm, a group of fans across the world who have known famine for so long that they've become like a group of devout fasting monks making use of whatever scrap they can get to sustain them for tremendously long periods of time. Now, on the surface level, you might be thinking, how is such a series that on the outside looks pretty generic attain such a level of reverence and dedication? If you look at it on a surface level, it looks like the most generic crap. Every version of Berserk opens up with evil, rapacious bandit men abusing a young girl at a medieval bar, but before things can go too far, a mysterious man with a black cloak and huge sword murders them. It's like every piece of generic Conan the Barbarian schlock. But if Berserk was just an endless series of images with a man with a giant sword cutting up masses of men and monsters, not that it doesn't have plenty of that, it wouldn't have managed to have the kind of staying power it has. One thing that separates Berserk from your standard neon wizard shooting lightning from their fingertips airbrushed on the side of the van kind of fantasy, or your standard Conan the Barbarian save the barmaids from vile bandits fantasy, is the absolutely gorgeous art. Kentaro Miura is one of the most talented, if not the greatest working comic book artist alive. Everything from his attention to detail like the historical armor and weapons and medieval torture devices helps give Berserk an authenticity that a lot of other fantasy-themed manga and anime just doesn't have. It provides a grounded aesthetic that gives the world weight, so when the more fantastical elements do come in, they hit much harder. This works wonders for the human conflict and characters, but when you get into the Giger-esque apostles and other fantastical creatures that inhabit the world of Berserk, like a mirror into a grotesque otherworld, it almost feels tangibly real. But even the greatest art wouldn't be anything if Berserk didn't have a great story driving its core. I could restate the same things that many other YouTubers have said, but you know what? Here's a supercut of various other video essay YouTubers singing its praises for all you Game of Thrones fans who've never heard of it before, and are wondering how the most popular HBO show in the world could stand in comparison to a manga with a guy using a ridiculously huge sword and looking generically angry and edgy all the time.
Guts is a character of two sides, one the battle-hungry power fantasy, and the other the shy, awkward giant scared to get close to people, and it's this second layer that makes him such an endearing and interesting protagonist. On the surface, he's the ideal seinen power trip. He has the upper body mass of several large rhinos and the brooding disposition of Batman on a very, very bad day. But where he starts to differ from his muscle-bound brethren is in one very simple area: his vulnerability.
Nihilism is defined as the rejection of all religious and moral principles, often in the belief that all life is meaningless. While existentialism stresses that people are entirely free and therefore responsible for what they make of themselves. Guts displays roots of thinking in both of these ideologies.
Compared to what you're trying to do, me fighting 100 men means nothing. It has no purpose. I'm not talking about just you. I mean Griffith also. The two of you have something important that you can stake your lives on. I think it's great. I truly mean that. Compared to the strength of that purpose, whether I face 100 men in battle or even 1,000 seems like nothing but a random act.
Guts is not like anyone else. He has no dreams, sees no meaning in life. He wants one, but he has no desires other than survival through violence. He essentially has no purpose, though he knows it's entirely up to him to find one.
In this chapter, we're introduced to the idea of evil, the self-proclaimed desired god. He explains to Griffith that he was created out of a human need for reason. People wanted reasons for the destiny that kept transcending their knowledge. It also explains that a part of it resides within every human. Quote, a common consciousness that transcends individuality. Their collective consciousness is a species. I was born from these swells as the ego of this world. "I am the darkness that dwells in every human heart," unquote. A fascinating idea, isn't it? Not only the idea that it was humans who created God, not vice versa, but that God isn't a being in the sky, but rather an idea that dwells within all of us. So what philosophical theory or theories is this idea of God based off of? If you go on the fandom Wikipedia page for the idea of evil, it actually says, quote, "The idea of evil is an evil version of Plato's theory of forms," unquote.
So I hope that gives you an idea of why it's so beloved, but I'm not quite here to reiterate those sentiments in my own words, because there's something else the two series have that I think is worth pointing out. What I find very interesting is how Game of Thrones and Berserk both illustrate the price that must be paid on the path for power. Outside of Guts, the other central figure most important to Berserk is his friend come rival turned bitter enemy Griffith. Now, Griffith starts out as a mercenary with a dream. He wants to build his own castle and to rule from it, to be the ruler of his own kingdom, and little by little we see him build towards that dream as his mercenary group begins to grow in renown and prestige as they win battle after battle. He climbs up the social strata, getting closer to his goal. The kingdom adores him, the princess loves him, he's doing everything possible to climb up the social ladder and infiltrate the world of nobility. But as we see him make that climb, his methods become more underhanded. At first he's selfless, like the time he sleeps with the nobleman in order to give his own body to ensure that the Band of the Hawk has the funding it's needed and reduce the casualties of the men who believe in him, instead of taking dangerous contracts, putting his people's needs above his own comfort. But as he gets closer to his goal, he becomes more ruthless and brutal, burning down the queen after she attempts to assassinate him, using Guts to do his dirty wet work and perform assassinations, all of the bodies lining up to pave the way to his castle. But along his way, Guts leaves him behind, realizing that if he is to grow, he must do so away from Griffith, lest he be consumed by his all-encompassing shadow. This breaks Griffith down on a primal level, who sees Guts as the only person truly on his level and his greatest prize. So instead of continuing his predestined path of slowly courting the princess and marrying into royalty as he slowly wins the kingdom's favor, he slips into her bedroom and sleeps with her. Upon the morning, he is arrested and taken and tortured for several years. All of his tendons are sliced, his tongue cut out, and he is placed within a metal mask resembling the helmet he used to wear in battle. He is a crippled and broken man. It's here where the karmic ties of destiny interfere. All these moments were leading up to the Great Eclipse, where Griffith would be invited to be reborn in a new dark form and join the God Hand, a group of omnipotent demons controlling the karmic destinies beyond the veil of mortal comprehension. But despite the introduction of the fantastical, all of it revolves around one human choice. For you see, to be reborn as a God Hand or a lesser apostle, a sacrifice must be made. An offering of someone dear to you. The covenant cannot be forged by offering just any schmuck. It must be someone very close to you, or else it's completely invalid. And it's here where Griffith forces his ultimate choice and confronts his true nature in one of my favorite scenes in the entire series.
But ma'am, this is terrible. There are so many dead people.
I know. This is the only path that leads to the castle. Those who really want to make it to the castle must either step over the ones who have fallen, or stay here to pave the roads for the ones with the will to make it.
Why don't you take us with you too? We'll fight by your side. We believe in you. You can make it. I want to carry your flag into battle.
I'm sorry. Please understand. Please understand.
It is because they followed you that they became what they are. If you had stopped the conceit from pouring from your mouth, then none of this would have ever happened. The cobblestones that have paved your chosen path are those skulls and bones of the dead whom you used. Now, child, look there. If you are indeed to make it to the castle, you'll need many, many more cobblestones to pave your road.
If I let myself feel regret or remorse, it could all slip away, and then I would never reach my destined throne.
Griffith is faced with the horrible realization that his ambition has always been paved with the dead bodies of those who trusted him most. His journey to his castle is a road filled with corpses, and the closer he gets, the more bodies he needs to climb over to reach his goal. It is the fundamental truth of his existence. Whether it's enemies he must conquer or allies who die in his name, his entire dream is built upon the decaying flesh of those who fight for or against him. Before he makes his final choice, Griffith is given a Passion of the Christ moment where he sees what a life he could enjoy if he gave up on his ambition. That he could be happy and content, but that's never enough for him. Once he owns his true nature, Griffith sacrifices the entire Band of the Hawk to take himself one step closer to that castle. And in many cases, that is the horrible truth of dreams and ambition, that the road to power is paved with mounds of sacrificial bodies. This holds especially true in the world of Game of Thrones. Stannis Baratheon's attempt to try and claim the Iron Throne saw him take claim of all the bannermen of the Stormlands as he sieged King's Landing, but most were scared away or burned by the wildfire. He got a second chance when he used a loan from the Iron Bank of Braavos to purchase a mercenary company, but ultimately the Winds of Winter whittled down his force to the point where he needed to pay the iron price of ambition with his own daughter's blood to open the path to victory. But he lost the moral high ground and the respect of his people, and his reign was cut short long before he could reach his castle. Daenerys was able to win the loyalty of the Unsullied and the Dothraki through fire and blood as she sought to become the Queen of Westeros and reclaim her family's throne, but little by little her mistakes were paid in the blood of her allies. Whether it was the people of Meereen, Ser Barristan Selmy, Jorah Mormont, Missandei, the entire platoon of the Unsullied, as well as the Dothraki people who rode into the night to see their light permanently extinguished from the world, Daenerys' path to the Iron Throne has been marked by a funeral pyre of people and cultures who believed in her, ultimately to fall as she marched forward on her path of ambition. Even her most precious and powerful children were forced to pay the iron price too on the way to her castle. And despite being so close to the Iron Throne, it feels like she's getting further and further away from it than ever before. Jon Snow is the leader who doesn't want to lead, someone who's been thrusted into a position of responsibility he never asked for. And it's a position that literally gets him killed. But amidst his difficulties in maintaining rule, he becomes a reluctant leader who more and more people are willing to die for. Under his command, both the Order of the Night's Watch and the majority of the wildling people have all died out. He never asked anyone to die on his behalf, but his reluctant leadership and the circumstances of fate put him in a position where people would keep on lining up to die for him and build a path to the Iron Throne he didn't even want. And now it feels as if the fate of the universe is propping him up to continue to take the leadership role he doesn't desire. It's a role he doesn't want because out of everyone, Jon is the most aware of all the people who've died on his behalf. And of course Cersei revels in all the corpses that have allowed for her ascent. The stepping stones to her becoming the Queen Regent are the mutilated bodies of her 3 children, along with the charred corpses of the High Sparrow, the Tyrell family, and all of the innocents from the Sept of Baelor. A mad and bitter queen who the only thing keeping her sane is the idea that she might replace the children she lost with new ones, and finally crush her last few enemies to secure her claim to the realm. If Game of Thrones throughout its 5 books and 8 seasons of television has been an examination on the nature of power, providing different examples of what people do with power when they have it, and how they can lose it, then it's also been a demonstration of what people must do to gain power, and the sacrifices they make to move forward, whether it's figuratively or in some cases literally burning your own daughter alive because it's what you believe needs to be done to build the next bloody step on the way to your castle. Whoever seeks the Iron Throne is a path riddled with bodies laid before them, just like Griffith. And with the game finally coming to an end, we'll know the exact corpse tally in terms of who had the most dead people laid at their feet to secure their right to rule once the game is finally won. But for all of you Game of Thrones fans who've never heard of Berserk, I hope this at least has piqued your curiosity, because I know you're going to need something to fill the void once the series is over and you have to wait a year for the prequel shows or the book that will never come. And there's like 30 volumes of Berserk waiting for you to tear into them. But of course, then you'll reach the point like the rest of us, waiting for the slow trickle of fan translation for the chapters that come ever so slowly from Japan. But hey, then you'll understand the never-ending existential torture of being Berserk's protagonist's guts as he's forced to fight against the forces of karmic fate in a never-ending uphill battle with only his fortitude and tenacity to lead him forward. Hope you're enjoying a month of Ice and Fire. With this video, we bring things to a close. I haven't done any reactionary stuff to Season 8 because I wanted to process everything before writing something, but I might make a video or two about it once everything is said and done. I also have some exciting projects coming down the pipeline, which you'll see soon, but not too soon since I'm going back to post a video when it's finished schedule. But if you want to show your appreciation for everything I've done, then throw me a few gold dragons on bounty, and you can also suggest future videos you want to watch, as well as where you and other people can crowdfund the stuff you want to see. Special thanks to Brodor and Wings of Prophecy for making this one a reality, so thanks for sticking around, hope you enjoyed a month of Ice and Fire, and remember, lobsters and tennis, but don't you grab it.
You gotta love to be gone back yet. Lobsters and tennis, but don't you grab it. Back as made fire.